Okay, I think we will kick off in just a couple of moments. Just a couple more people I can see who are joining. But thank you everyone who has joined so far. I know the sun is shining. If anyone is out in their garden, I'm very jealous. Okay, I think we've got quite a few of you now, so I think we will get started. So really just want to say good morning everyone, and just give a little bit of an introduction. So I'd love to welcome you all to Milkround's first webinar discussion, which I hope will be the first of many. Now just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Georgie. I've worked at Milkround for quite some time now, and I've seen many changes to the graduate recruitment market, but of course nothing quite like what we're seeing now. And I know that together, students, graduates, employers, suppliers, we can get through this together. Now we're very keen to understand employer challenges, and we will continue to bridge the gap between connecting students and graduates to their future employers. So soon I'm going to be passing you over to my colleagues Charlie and Lisa, so give a little wave. Brilliant. Who will be taking you through some of our latest research. Now we're also joined today by Georgie Kemp. Georgie, give a little wave. Brilliant. So Georgie Kemp works at leading digital marketing agency Impression. Now, Georgie has joined us as a young worker and has a great insight into how important work experience has been for her career so far, and also is here to give us a deeper understanding of what graduates are looking for from their job, which forms part of our research. So just before we start, just a couple of housekeeping points before we begin. Now, we are recording this webinar, so if you would like a copy of the recording or of our slides, then please do let us know. Also, we have the chance to answer some questions at the end, so we're going to be going for about 40-45 minutes, and then we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have in the end. So you've got a little chat box on your right hand side. I know that the camera flips, so it probably looks like I'm pointing to my left, but on your right hand side you should see a chat box, so please do pop any questions you have along the way. So I'm going to finish up there. We're going to turn off our cameras now so that you can make full use of all the slides and all of the insights, and I'm going to pass you over to Charlie.
Thanks, Georgie, for introducing us. So, hi everyone. As Georgie mentioned, we're going to be taking you through our latest research. So we surveyed 2,000 graduates, with the main focus for our survey initially being around generational changes. So that includes how student and graduate attitudes have altered over time. But after actually analysing the research, we spotted a key theme around success and what that looks like to graduates today. So in today's session, we'd like to share insight on two themes. Firstly, looking at the power of internships as stepping stones into a graduate's career. And secondly, we'll be covering what graduates see as success. We'll then finish off by sharing some top tips to providing a clear progression path for graduates, as well as adapting your workflows to the current situation. So just quickly, why did we decide to undertake the research? Well, we knew from our experience and common knowledge in the market that it's really challenging for employers to adapt to graduate expectations. We also wanted to find out whether graduate expectations of progression are actually realistic. And lastly, we wanted to offer some advice on how employers can set clear expectations and development pathways, which will benefit attraction and retention strategies as well. I just wanted to also mention that with the current situation, we decided to conduct some further research. So this reflects how students are currently feeling about their career prospects with the coronavirus. So we'll be referencing this throughout the presentation. I'm now going to pass over to Lisa, who will be taking you through the power of internships. So over to you, Lisa.
Hi everyone, thank you, Charlotte. So the first part of our insight focuses on the huge role that internships play, especially when we consider Gen Z. We'll now take you through some of the different areas that we covered. So gaining experience. From our research, we can see that 62% of students and graduates had work experience before getting their first job. So delving a bit deeper into the research, when we consider what Gen Z have had before getting their first job, we can see that 27% have already carried out work experience or an internship before university, and 36% have undertaken a work placement. So as a whole, 52% of Gen Z have completed an internship during either year 1, 2, or 3 of university, showing there's a huge motivation to gain reputable experience for the firm before applying for their graduate role. So when we then looked at how they secured their first graduate job, we can see that 54% of Gen Z graduates secured this either with the same employer they had their work experience with, or through a connection made during their work experience, compared to 45% of those who accepted an offer unrelated to work experience. So what that shows us is that students and graduates are gaining relevant experience and speaking to relevant networks in order to build their knowledge and understanding of an industry before applying for and securing graduate roles later down the line. So Gen Z versus millennials. So when when a graduate securing these roles, and how does this change between Gen Z and millennials? Well, graduates are now being recruited earlier, with 60% of Gen Z having secured a graduate position before they leave university. This makes them the least likely of all generations to still be looking for a job after graduation. Looking at this in more detail, 1 in 3 of Gen Z secured their graduate role before reaching their final year, while 27% secured their first role during their final year of university. This contrasts with 17% of millennials who secured a role in their last year, and nearly half found graduate employment post-university. So work experience is key, with 32% of Gen Z securing their first role through connections, whilst 23% of millennials secured theirs the same way. So we therefore suggest offering internship or work experience opportunities to allow students to get a view of the company before they've actually joined. So obviously, due to the coronavirus outbreak, this can be more challenging for organisations. So we have found from our newest survey, and you can see here that only 18% of graduates have actually been able to secure their graduate role, and of those who have secured a graduate job, 60% are concerned current circumstances will impact their position. It's therefore really important for employers to be communicating with graduates during this period of uncertainty to reassure those who have been successful. So Russell Group versus non-Russell Group.
I think we're just having a little bit of technical difficulty with the slides. You just bear with us 1 second. We'll just get it back up and running. So sorry, everyone.
Thank you everyone for your patience. We've had an internet connection that's gone down, so please do just bear with us for 2 seconds whilst we get this back up and running. Okay, I think we're back up and running.
I think it's just taking a couple of minutes to just, there we go. So,
there we go. We're there.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you. So Gen Z versus millennials. So when are graduates securing these roles, and how does this change between Gen Z and millennials? Sorry, I've already did that slide. Apologies. Sorry, I need to catch up now. So sorry. Russell group versus non-Russell group. So in line with graduates having that drive to secure their graduate jobs early on, we'll now look at how vital internships are to those studying at different universities. So from our research, we found that 83% of non-Russell group graduates felt they wouldn't have been able to secure their first graduate role without an internship, compared to just 14% of their Russell group contemporaries. Employers therefore need to ensure their internship schemes are not only accessible to everyone, but that they also challenge interns to develop skills they'll need when entering the workplace. Further to this, we know that the research published in 2018 by the Department for Education, that students attending Russell Group universities were more likely to earn a higher salary than those that don't. So it's really important that employers are able to offer these internship opportunities to create a fairer playing field and ensure that they're getting the best talent no matter what university they're from. And then looking at our COVID-19 data for internships in the current climate. So just 8% of students have been able to secure an internship for this summer. 25% are still searching for an internship opportunity. 37% of students who have secured an internship this spring or summer have since had it terminated. And of those students who have secured an internship, 63% say current circumstances will have impacted their position. So what does this mean? This will have a huge impact on students and their ability to gain that real life experience. This is going to impact those from non-Russell Group universities even more so, as we know that 83% see internships as vital to securing graduate jobs. So I'm now going to pass over to Georgie from Impression, who is going to tell us a bit more about the work experience she gained whilst at university and whether she believes this was fundamental in securing her graduate role at Impression. Hi Georgie, so can you tell us, did you gain any work experience whilst at university?
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so I did indeed. When I first started Nottingham Trent University back in 2015, studying a BA marketing degree, I originally signed up for a year in industry during my course. But I kind of knew that I didn't really want to take a whole year out throughout my course. So I personally didn't really want to pigeonhole myself so early on in my career to one specific marketing discipline, with at least not gaining any first-hand experience throughout different areas of marketing to see what I enjoyed the most. So yeah, upon starting university, I wanted to capture as many opportunities as possible. So towards the end of my first year, I completed 2 weeks of work experience at a web design and digital marketing agency based in Cambridge. As my degree was very much theory-based, I was pretty intrigued by digital marketing practices and how they continue to evolve so rapidly. During this, I mainly shadowed a strategist during the first couple of days to really learn the ropes and just saw how they worked with their clients, which was super insightful. And then during my second and third year of university, I knew that I wanted to stick to the digital marketing side of it. So I worked for the global social networking brand Bumble. So during this period, I gained really great connections, lots of networking opportunities with those in my industry, and I was responsible for social media and guerrilla style marketing across Nottingham. And then further to that, whilst I was also working at Bumble, I secured an internship towards the end of my second year at Impression. As Georgie said earlier, it's a digital marketing agency based in Nottingham. So yeah, quite interestingly, I actually met the founder of Impression at a SME networking event during my first year of university, and I managed to stay in touch with him via LinkedIn throughout my whole time of university. So they actually offered me a summer internship. So this was incredibly extensive. I got the chance to work on real life client tasks. I was trained up by a range of employees at Impression, And then the founders were so impressed with my work that they gave me the opportunity for flexible part-time work during my final year of university. So yeah, during my final year, I learned so much practical experience, which was pretty much invaluable. And I was able to apply these real-life marketing skills to my projects at university. And I felt that this really gave me the upper hand and truly enhanced my overall grade. So just leading on, so upon graduating university, I was actually accepted onto Impression's graduate scheme, where I've been since 2017, and yeah, I've been loving it ever since.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds great. So would you say this was fundamental in securing your graduate role at Impression?
Yep, absolutely. So I'd probably say that the experience within the sector I wanted to move into, in combination with the softer skills developed throughout university and through part-time work, were instrumental to securing my role at Impression. So I felt that the opportunity to gain such insightful work experience whilst also studying for a degree and also completing complementing qualifications really helped with my time management, teamwork and communication, like creative thinking. So I'd say that the hybrid between my theoretical knowledge, application of some softer skills and positive attitude really helped me to get where I am today.
Sure, no, that sounds great. Well, thank you, Georgie. I'm now going to pass you over to Charlotte, who will be taking you through what success looks like.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks, Georgie. That was really, really insightful. So we're now going to move on to success and what this looks like for graduates. So as I mentioned earlier, initially the main focus for our survey was around those generational changes and how attitudes evolved over time. But after actually analysing the research, we spotted a key theme around success and what that looks like to graduates today, which is what we'll be discussing now. So now Lisa has spoken about internships and the importance of giving students that experience. What happens when you've actually employed them full time, and what does the idea of success look like to them? Well, our research actually found that UK workers feel very differently about what they consider to be the best indicator of success or progression. So 1 in 3 of Gen Z workers believe that learning new skills is the biggest sign of progression, and this compares to just 15% of baby boomers who would actually say the same about their first graduate job. Only 15% of Gen Z stated that an increase in salary was an important measure of success for their first job, which actually makes them the least salary-focused generation that we surveyed. I also think it's really interesting to mention here that non-Russell Group graduates are more likely to measure their workplace success as learning new skills when compared to their Russell Group counterparts, who are much more likely to measure success by an increase in salary. So now moving on to look more deeply into the indicators of progression. According to our research, graduates believe that learning new skills is the top indicator of progression, followed by an increase in salary, more responsibility, taking on a management role, and then gaining a better job title. So when we look at that generational split, for baby boomers, there was a fairly even split across the 5 indicators, whereas when we look at Gen Z, learning new skills in their first grad job was actually twice as important to them than reaching a higher salary, which just emphasises how important development is. So now that we've looked at those progression factors, we wanted to look at how long Gen Z actually plan to stay in their first role. And as you can see here, a massive 84% of Gen Z said that they look to stay in their role for less than 2 years, with only 1% saying they would stay for more than 5. As this was quite surprising, we wanted to look at what the reasons for this were, like why didn't Generation Z see themselves staying at their first role long term? So when we asked them, they actually said the main reason for moving would be to learn new skills, emphasising that need for employers to offer development opportunities and outline these from the outset. So then if we look further into the reasons why graduates are leaving, we've actually outlined the top 5 here for you. So as we've just discussed, the top reason was to learn new skills. And the second reason graduates are leaving is to actually move location. So in order to prevent this, could you potentially look at offering different rotations in alternative locations and then allowing graduates to put forward their top location choices? So they're also leaving for faster career progression. It's therefore super important to look at the progression path and what is available to a graduate when looking into the future. So potentially after a structured graduate program finishes, for example. These are then followed by a higher salary and a change in the work environment. So are there any monetary or workplace benefits you could offer that could help them to stay? I do think it's really important for you to be thinking about these reasons and potentially implementing initiatives to prevent employees from leaving and helping them to better see a future at the company. So we're just going to go back over to Georgie. So Georgie, what would you say are the biggest factors of success and progression within an organisation?
Thanks, Charlie. So I think, honestly, having a clear progression path is absolutely vital for any employee to really understand how and when they'll progress within an organisation. So just from my personal experience as a graduate, having that transparent roadmap of like detailed competencies is absolutely required to progress within a company, helping to continue to motivate your employees to deliver the very best work and also to retain your staff. I think also the ability to continually learn at work and to upskill both personally and professionally is absolutely invaluable. It's an invaluable part of an employee's success and something that I would personally take over a salary increase any day. So yeah, for example, Impression recently offered an incredible confidence coach to come in. Her name's Kirsty Hulse, and she came into the office for a full day of training. And this training was truly revolutionary for many employees across the company. And I think it's led me, for example, to apply for loads of public speaking opportunities that I'd never believe I'd be doing in my life. So I think that just shows that therefore having that level of personal support within an organisation for a young person is key to progressing.
So that's great. It sounds like Impression are doing a lot there to help you with your progression. And I totally agree. I think that learning new skills is super important, and especially early on in a career, it can be more important than monetary value. So in your opinion, what can companies do to support young workers?
I'd say that young workers joining a company from either a higher education background or not are likely to value allocated training time to work on how they can progress within the company. So this could be complemented with frequent one-to-one meetings discussing perhaps what's gone well, what's not gone so well over the past couple of weeks, and really having that support moving forward. I'd say also flexible working is quite a big one and is very much a shift that we've seen throughout different types of companies. So before this crisis, it seemed that many organisations wouldn't even consider their employees to work from home. But I think we have to realise that no two employees will ever be the same. And by allowing flexible working, this displays like the actual trust that you have in them. And especially with everything that's going on at the moment, it shows how quickly your employees can adapt to work from home. Also, I think, so personally, I'm pretty passionate about helping those around me, like the local community, and providing insight to younger people. Because I came out of that position quite recently, so I know how valuable that can be. At Impression, I now head up their CSR team, and I'm fortunate enough that Impression also wants to give back and increase graduate retention within the city. So this allows us to provide like various insight days, online training, just to help those within like a secondary school or university level to get that experience that's needed.
Great, thanks, Georgie. That's really interesting. It sounds like Impression are doing really great things to support retention as well, which is fantastic to hear. So we're now going to move on to our top tips for offering a clear progression path. So whilst it may seem like this isn't the most pressing thing on the agenda at the moment, we do advise that employers focus on these tips over the months. So this will ensure that when things do go back to normal, you have that clear progression path in place, which will help you to retain graduates. So the first tip here is to make sure every employee knows development options. So as we've just heard from our research, Gen Z are leaving because they feel that they can progress faster if they move companies. So they need to be able to visualize being a part of your business long term. And to do so, they need a really obvious route of how they're going to get there. So I think you should be regularly checking in to see what their goals and objectives are, as these could change over time. So this will allow you to assess a graduate's progress and help them to refine their career path. You should also be encouraging credible candidates to apply for promotions when they arise. And for those who are underqualified, you should be communicating with them what they need to do to get there. So secondly, we need to be letting employees have their say, and you need to be realistic with them. So again, it's talking to them and asking them what they're looking for. So for example, this could be a promotion, a pay rise, or training. And if you do agree to any of these, you need to make sure that you're actually delivering on those promises. So as long as they meet the objectives that you set out at the beginning. You should also be aware of when it's best to discuss a graduate's progression pathway too. So being proactive, having regular career planning conversations can ensure that employees stay positive and motivated. So the third one is allowing them to develop or learn new skills. Again, as we've heard throughout this presentation, this is key for the majority of employees. So making sure that this is accessible and equal for everybody, so that everyone can benefit, is really important. This can be actually executed and translated in many different ways. So from training and courses through to hackathons and things like that. It can also be done right from the onboarding process and before a graduate even starts. So for example, they could be doing some online learning to upskill in particular areas, or you could be giving them small tasks and goals to complete. A number of options can be done from home, so this is definitely something that you can be putting in motion even during the current situation. And then our fourth tip is to promote case studies. So this is where you would highlight employees who have developed and grown within your company. This makes the possibilities known to new employees coming into the business, and enables them to better see their future with you. So in one of our roundtable events, one of our clients actually shared what they do to encourage graduates to stay. So one of the initiatives involved the director showcasing how he worked his way up the business. So I thought this was really great and just shows all the employees what they can do to get to the top, and it can allow them to better see a future at the company as well. And then our fifth tip is to consider job swap initiatives. So many of you probably know what this is already, but it's basically where you allow employees to sit within a different department for a few days, few weeks, or a couple of months. So this will enable them to understand other areas of the business and can also really support with their learning. So if you are unable to offer a full job swap, you could arrange a couple of days work experience instead, which they could find really, really useful. So I'm just going to pass back over to Lisa now, who's going to discuss our COVID-19 data in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Charlotte. So we know that students are feeling concerned about their future prospects, and this coincides with the impact. So we know that COVID-19 has had a huge impact on those looking to secure internships this spring and summer. So we're now going to cover some of the other findings from our research. 3/4 of current students and recent graduates feel the situation around COVID-19 will heavily impact their career prospects. 40% of those have been contacted by their future employer to put on leave, which is obviously great. 18% of those graduating this year have been able to secure a grad job, compared to the research we conducted earlier in the year, which showed that 60% of Gen Z secured the graduate role before leaving university. And 63% of those who have already secured a graduate job are worried that the current situation will impact their position. So what can you be doing to support young people during this time? So we know that recruitment has been impacted, but now is a good time to invest time in employer branding. Students will remember what activities and communication companies went out with, and this could encourage applications later down the line. We know that only 40% of employers have been in touch with those with offers to put them at ease, and being fully transparent is, of course,
I think we may be having some other technical difficulties. Sorry, everybody. Thank you so much for bearing with us. It's the problem with everybody all working from home in these times. Lisa, I don't know if you can hear me at all. I don't think she can, so I'm just going to just continue with her bit for the moment. Thanks everybody again for sticking with us.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I think
Can you hear me now? Sorry, everybody. I knew this would happen. I don't think there's been a time it hasn't gone on me. Apologies. Okay, great. So obviously, letting you know about the getting in touch through Zoom and Microsoft Teams or even WhatsApp group for new starters. So ultimately, that transparency will allow you to maintain. For example, you could be thinking, are there any other ways you can provide that communication online with new and prospective candidates, such as through content pieces or maybe through virtual on-campus engagement? And finally, as we mentioned earlier, instead of terminating internships, can you offer an alternative, such as skills-based training or a virtual project? If you don't have the resource to offer any of these offerings, you could also look to get them involved in the business still, letting students or graduates shadow meetings or be involved in networking opportunities, which will ultimately develop their skills and get a sense of what it's like to work at your company. So over now again to Georgie, who's going to take us through her thoughts on the impact of COVID-19 and what support she expects to see for employers. How do you feel about COVID-19 and the impact of people looking to gain experience? And
Thanks, Lisa. So I feel that the graduate market is indeed likely to become increasingly more competitive, which is likely to provide both challenges and opportunities for graduates. So the inevitable challenge is that it may be more difficult to source work experience opportunities, internships, and even beginning their graduate roles. I think finding a job can be an anxiety-provoking and stressful time for anyone. Those about to start their career from afresh, arguably more so. So many of these young people may not have prolonged experience and exposure to working full-time within a company setting, increasing the daunting aspect that it may be for them. I think that the main question is that it will be how these students and recent grads are going to react to this. So the ultimate positive is during the current climate, there's limitless opportunities to continue to upskill and work on themselves relating to their desired role or personal progression that they may not have been able to achieve alongside their workload at university. I think I've seen personally various industries and different organisations during lockdown offering webinars, free training courses, all at the power from someone's laptop. So therefore, I'd say with graduates taking the time to continue to upskill and create opportunities for themselves online to display their initiative could result in a far more skilled graduate workforce entering the market as we transition through and coming out of the current crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. And what support would you expect to see from an employer during this time? And do you have any tips for them?
I'll probably say from an employer perspective, you may not be able to continue with your face-to-face internships or work experience that you may have already arranged, but there's not much stopping you from delivering that same experience online. So as just discussed, students and graduates looking to upskill during this time could learn so much from a online mentorship, training in a webinar or series format. So this is not likely to take too much time out of from a company's perspective, but it's also likely to have a lasting impact on these graduates during the current climate, whilst also increasing your brand awareness as an organisation. So I'd probably say that if you are continuing to hire, a full and extensive onboarding or induction process and continued support online that helps the young person transition from working life almost seamlessly. So I'd say from my personal experience, my onboarding process was absolutely vital to really integrating yourself within an organisation. So during my onboarding process, we had the chance to speak to different members of the team that we probably wouldn't be working with directly, and we got to ask them various questions about their job role and aspects of the business, which was just a great fact-finding opportunity. So I feel that this type of process is something that could be easily replicated on Zoom, Hangouts, or any other similar platforms. And I'd also say from a support perspective during an employer, creating these relationships with universities around the UK. So at Nottingham Trent University, we had an incredible relationship with local and international businesses. We were regularly sent work experience and job opportunities that were available straight to our student email inboxes. So I'd say that the power of nurturing a long-lasting relationship with universities within your area can streamline your recruitment efforts in the future, make a huge impact to upskill students, whilst also helping to keep the graduate retention rate in your town and city up.
Okay, great. Great advice there, Georgie. Thank you. I'm now going to pass you back over to Charlotte to summarise our key findings.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Again, it's such useful information there, Georgie. It's really nice to hear firsthand from somebody who's just been experiencing this and to get their thoughts. So to summarise, I just wanted to recap our key findings from the research. Amongst all of the insight, there were two themes we've covered today. So the first being that importance of internships in securing graduate roles, with 68% of Gen Z saying that they wouldn't have been able to secure their first role without their internship, compared to just 48% of baby boomers. And the second being the need for clear progression pathways to keep Gen Z in your workforce. So with 29% of students and graduates saying they would leave their role if they could develop new skills elsewhere, and similarly 29% saying that they would leave to quicken their career progression. So to finish, I just wanted to leave you with some positive candidate engagements that we are seeing here at Milkround. So we're still seeing really high levels of interaction from candidates. Even during this uncertain time, students and graduates are interested in their career and looking for their next opportunity. So it's therefore really important to ensure that you are being visible and staying at the forefront of their minds. So whether that be in terms of content and communication on social, or whether that's promoting the great roles that you have to offer students and graduates. So just looking at our numbers from March, which you should be able to see up on the screen, we had over 11.5 candidates registering to our site. There were over 80,000 applications sent to roles listed on our site. We've actually seen an 81% year-on-year increase in APV, which is applications per vacancy. And finally, we actually had over 364,000 students and graduates visiting the Milkround site. So what this shows is that whilst we're seeing less jobs as employers are facing challenges, candidates are still looking and do want to know what their options are, which is really, really positive to see. So thank you for your patience whilst we dealt with some technical difficulties, and for listening to us whilst we took you through the research. We're now going to be rejoined by Georgie from Milkround as well as Georgie from Impression to go through any of the questions that have been asked throughout the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. I think that was so interesting, and I think it's just so important to hear about what is currently going on, how students and graduates are currently feeling. And I think it really does go to show that they need to be hearing from employers. They need to know that there's positivity on the horizon and that employers are there to support them. So thank you so much. Now, I've just got a couple of questions. I've seen a couple have come through from a couple of those watching. So I'm just going to answer the first one. So the first one here is, what skills would graduates like to learn, and what do you think they need to what skills do you think they need to future-proof their careers? Now, personally, I think it's definitely soft skills that they need to be thinking about. And just to give you a little sneak peek, so every year Milkround conducts research to find out about student perceptions, to find out about how they're feeling about work, going into the world of work, how they're feeling about their own skill sets. And that's brand new research that we've just conducted for this year. And just to give you a little sneak peek preview, because I think this is really fitting, is that it really is those soft skills. And out of those soft skills, it's that communication piece that they really want that support with. So how they're communicating with each other, and as well, kind of that time management piece as well. So how you can support with those smaller skills, that absolutely comes across every industry, every role. These soft skills are needed for all students and graduates. So those are the ones to focus on, rather than more of like the technical skills, which they can learn on the job, and they can learn throughout. So really think about any packs, any small kind of projects that you can do to test them and to challenge them on these skill sets, because they're not the kind of skills that you potentially learn throughout your time at university and throughout the education, throughout your time within education. So really do consider that, thinking and focusing on those. Now, we've just got a couple of questions as well, so I'm going to ask these to I'm going to ask the first one. This is for you, Georgie. So I know you touched very lightly that when you were in your first year of university, you wanted to stand out. You actually really went out there and focused on that. And we've seen from our research that first year students are going out there and looking for their jobs, and that they are really committed and they're driven. So do you feel that there were enough opportunities in either your first year, second year for students, or are they more focused towards sort of final year students? And do you think that with the current situation and with the move to virtual employer events, do you think that this is the new normal?
I'd say from my personal experience that at Nottingham Trent University, there was a whole host of opportunities. So for those that aren't aware, so Nottingham Trent is a non-Russell group, and I was just absolutely blown away with the opportunities that they'd provide. Pretty much every day there was something going on, whether it was helping with like creative writing, upskilling in certain qualifications, or even just like industry lectures. They'd have people coming in all the time. Although that many of the bigger events, such as like graduate fairs and getting to know certain companies, they were mainly focused on third years. I still went my first year. I just walked around and tried to introduce myself to as many people as possible, because even if it is directed to that's people in third year, there's nothing stopping you from going and just seeing what jobs are out there. How can you prepare yourself for 2 years down the line? And then I'd probably say for the new normal, I think that you can reach a vast amount of people via a webinar format, as shown from today, for example. I think that it could be the future. And even when we do go back to the actual normal of being in like an office environment, we should continue with these webinar formats, because as we've seen today, you can really spread your awareness and just share your knowledge with a whole host of people that you probably wouldn't be able to do from like a one-on-one basis.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I mean, that's something that we are really focusing on here at Milkround, is how we are able to host these webinars for employers too. So for everyone on the call, please do watch out. That is on the horizon very shortly. So please do keep in contact, because it is such a great way. And I think it's just such a great opportunity that you can, this is absolutely an opportunity for people to really diminish those habits of going after Russell Group University students, and really going out there and approaching everyone and giving everyone the same opportunity. So I will stop blabbering on. But question number 2. So Lisa, this one's for you. So why do you think that employers, so this is kind of going on from that, so why do you think that employers still focus their attraction strategies around Russell Group students?
Yeah, I think for many it's getting out of that habit of how it's always been done. Competitors may continue to focus on those Russell Group universities, which can influence companies to carry on doing the same. However, it's important to continue extending your attraction outside of this group of universities. For many, it's easier to keep processes the same, but we know that being diverse is not only the right thing to do, but there is also a business case for it too. McKinsey & Company identified this in their diversity report a couple of years ago, showing that those firms are the most likely, showing that those firms that are the most diverse are likely to outperform other companies and generate profits about industry average, showing even more of a reason to attract candidates from all universities to help increase diversity in your business.
Brilliant, thank you, Lisa. Completely agree. Let's try and beat those habits. We've just had another question come in. So someone said that they do a lot of graduate recruitment, but post-graduation. So when candidates are being offered roles before leaving uni, are these usually conditional based or achieving a certain grade? Now, this is something where it's completely dependent on the company, and for a lot of companies who are trying to focus on increasing diversity and inclusion, they're trying to remove these minimum requirements, so removing these grades. I mean, if someone is right for the role at that stage and they've gone through the interview process, what's stopping them? If they potentially have a bad day at the end, is that really going to impact the whole of their future career? I think it's really something for your company to think about, and whether or not you've gone through in their final year or in their second year and they've gone through that application process and you're like, right, yep, we need this person, then don't base it all on these certain grades unless they are really absolutely vital. I think these minimum requirements we can really start to remove them, and we are seeing more companies beginning to remove them to try and attract a deeper audience and deeper candidate pool. So please do consider that. And we've got one final question. So Charlie, I'm going to ask this one to you. Now, I was quite shocked when I saw the research that 83% wanted to leave their graduate role within 2 years. Now, do you think that this is always a bad thing?
So yeah, it is quite shocking. I don't think it is always a bad thing. We know that students and graduates aren't going to be staying forever, but I think it's about motivating them and developing their skills within this time, which could encourage them to stay for longer. So I think it's really important to create that trust and commitment with these cohorts, so that they potentially might want to come back even after they've gone. So actually on that, one of our well-known banking clients actually provide graduates with support and guidance throughout their time there, before encouraging them to actually leave the company and then to come back a few years later. So this is quite a different way of thinking about things, but it does mean that those graduates are able to develop their skills elsewhere, but then ultimately go back to that original company who has built their trust and offered them a really great experience, which I think is really, really nice and good way to look at things. Absolutely,
I think I totally agree with that. I was actually a bit of a boomerang employee at Milkround, so I think if you leave and keeping those relationships, keeping close contacts, and knowing that you can bring people back into the business. I mean, I don't know if anyone is pleased I came back, but let's say yes. And I think it's just so nice and warming to know that you don't have to cut those ties, that leaving isn't a bad thing, that you can come back and you can resume, or you can try something different within the company. Absolutely. Now, I've just had one final question that's just come in. So think, Charlie, I think I'm going to ask this one to you again. So this last one. So they've said, in terms of the current situation, we've had to cancel some of our internship and graduate opportunities. Do you have any advice for supporting students and graduates?
I think the key thing here is just with communication. So I think we do just need to be speaking really regularly with them, catching up and talking about how the current circumstances are going to be affecting your company. So we know from looking at recent articles, I think it was the ISE that documented that employers are actually planning to cut graduate vacancies by 12% this year. So students are going to be quite heavily impacted, but it is really important at this time to keep their drive and to support them in any ways that you can. So we've spoken throughout the presentation about the importance of your employer brand and how what you do now will be remembered by students in the future. So I think that's really key. And as well, everything is quite slow paced at the moment. So this means that students and graduates have more time to invest into new passions and new skills. So therefore what you could be doing is actively encouraging those individuals to go out and learn new skills, and then when you are ready to rehire, to get them to speak about this, about the skills they've learned over this time and what they could be adding to their CV. So this could be things like Photoshop skills, which they can now use alongside their marketing degree, or maybe in some cases they might have even learnt a new language or something. So I think there's lots of things you can be doing to support them as well if you can't hire them at this time.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. I think that's everything. So I just want to say an absolutely massive thank you to Charlotte and Lisa for going through our research, and an absolutely massive thank you, Georgie, for joining us this morning. It was brilliant to hear about your experiences and just how your experiences has really helped you on your career journey so far. So thank you, and thank you everyone for listening. As I mentioned at the start, we have recorded this, so if you would like a recording, then please do let us know, or if you have any further questions or want us to delve deeper into our research, then again please just pop us an email. I know I gave a sneak peek of our recent research that we're going to be releasing in the next month, so please do keep an eye out for our next Candidate Compass report. You can find our 2019 report on the Milkround website, so take a look at that, and we'll be sharing more findings soon, so please do keep in touch with us, and looking forward to more webinars in the future. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.